What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Neosynthesis coming at you again with another profile of this the same Eldlich list that I have pretty much been pushing pretty hard. There's one change that I'll talk about in the deck list, but I just wanted to make kind of the last Eldlich deck that or the last profile of this Eldlich deck that I'll make, at least in its current state. As you can maybe see, I have finished swagging out the extra deck. Had to craft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ultra rares for that. Not worth it. Don't do it. This is the high roller list. I maybe will make a cheaper, more budget-friendly list in the future, but I just wanted to go ahead and get my high roller, try-hard Eldlich deck out there. So, first off, I'll start off with the Eldlich, the Golden Lord. I don't run any other monsters besides him. He's one of the most tutorable cards in the game. Through a lot of the other stuff we will see in the deck as we go along. But if you don't know what Eldlich, the Golden Lord, does, if he's in your hand, you can send one spell trap card in your hand along with him to the graveyard, target one monster or one card on the field, and destroy it. Maybe it sends it to the graveyard. Yeah, it sends it to the graveyard. Sorry, it does not destroy it. Those are distinct. And then if this card's in your graveyard, you can target one spell trap you control. Doesn't have to be face up or anything. If you target it, you target and destroy it. Actually, never mind. You target and send it to the graveyard. And then if you do that, you can special summon a zombie from your hand, and it gains 1,000 attack. So you summon itself, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of cool interactions with Eldlich, the Golden Lord, where basically it allows you to pay the cost of the effect and potentially do things that you wouldn't be able to do if you weren't paying that specific cost. But we'll get into that more as we go. I'm going to go ahead and just rip off the pot brigade, as I kind of call it. I'm running two duality. Duality just lets you dig 3 cards deep off the top of your deck. Just see 3 cards and pick the best one to add to your hand. At the downside of just not being able to special summon, the turn you do it in this deck, you don't really mind having one turn where you can't special summon. Most of your special summoning is done on your opponent's turn, and Duality just basically lets you set up really strong turn ones because you can get like specific cards. The other card that we're going to talk about it pretty much does the same thing as Duality, but it's a bit better. Prosperity allows you to dig 6 cards deep, but the cost is much higher. You can't draw cards for the rest of the turn. During the turn that you activate Pot of Prosperity is one of the downsides. The other downside is you need to banish 3 to 6 monsters from your extra deck. That's why you kind of look at my extra deck and you see a lot of multiple copies of cards. That's not on accident, and that's why I left all that stuff for the end to craft, because I knew that A, it would be really expensive, and B, that you don't really go into your extra deck that often. I'll talk about the cases where you do, and the cases where having cards in your extra deck in specific matchups can be helpful. And then Pot of Extravagance is the last card I'm going to talk about. You banish 3 to 6 random, 3 or 6 random cards face down from your extra deck, and then you draw 1 for every 3. So pretty much every time you're banishing 6 cards from your extra deck at random, which is exactly why we have multiples of all the cards that I'll talk about a little bit later in the extra deck. Is basically so that when we activate Extravagance and Prosperity, perhaps we can still have that crucial extra deck card that we need to win the game. If you're a new player, craft the Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity. You will not regret it. Oh yeah, you can't draw cards the turn you activate this card with other effects, but you essentially the only card this conflicts with in the entire deck is this one. So it's pretty good. And then as for the Elixir and just Eldlich specific cards, first off is Elixir of Black Awakening. Elixir of Black Awakening allows you to special summon that Golden Lord that we just mentioned earlier from your deck or your hand in defense position. It's really wordy, but that's because you can run this card in other decks as well, and like summon zombies and whatnot. But we're not playing like that kind of janky combo Eldlich variant. This is like a hardcore control variant of the deck. Next card we'll talk about, as I guess we should talk about White Destiny first. White Destiny is a quick play spell card, so it is significantly better than your Black Destiny is, and it says you can special summon one zombie monster from your graveyard or your hand. And then there's also restriction, and this restriction is shared across all the cards that say Elixir, and basically just you can't special summon any monsters that are not zombies for the rest of the turn. So, but that usually does not come up. The extract doesn't really have any zombies in it besides one that I'll get to in just a bit. But as for the restrictions there, you know, most of the time you can get around them by activating this quick play card on your opponent's turn, and then you can do whatever you want on your turn. And then the Elblitch or Trap, which we'll get into a little later, you can also activate on your opponent's turn. That's why I often say, you'll see in my my gameplay and kind of more guides videos, that Black Awakening is like the worst Elixir, because it's just it can only be activated on your turn, basically. Yeah, and the other one's not basically, but it's just the only one that you can't activate on your opponent's turn because it's not a quick play or a trap. Cursed Eldland. This is probably the one of the best cards to draw. This is probably like the best spell trap in the deck. This, or I think Extravagance is better than Eldland. But this card, when this card's on the field, you can't attack except for with zombie monsters. That rarely comes up, and if it does come up that you want to attack, there's plenty of ways to send the Eldland to the graveyard. I already mentioned the Eldlords effect, so that's a pretty common way you're gonna be getting rid of this Eldland, and there's even a benefit that we'll talk about in just a second for getting rid of your Eldland. When you activate this card, you're allowed to once per turn pay 800 and add a golden land or an Eldlich monster from your deck to your hand. Oftentimes, you're only going to be getting one search with your Eldland because of the effect that the second effect, I guess, of this card, and you can activate both effects of Eldland. And I actually forgot to talk about an effect on all the Elixir cards, so I'll just mention what the secondary effect of all of them is when I get to the trap in just a second. But if this card is sent from this spell trap card zone to the graveyard, so it gets Mystical Space Typhooned, or you are destroying it, or your opponent destroys it, or whatnot, you can send an Eldlich monster. So you can send your Eldlord if you can't get that going, or you can send a Golden Land spell trap, and that will also get you onto your Eldlord in a more roundabout fashion. In the mirror match specifically, and in kind of more grindy control v control matchups, I would try to recommend leaving this on the board to get multiple +1s off of it. You can get like multiple adds per turn, as opposed to in a lot of, like, if you're playing versus combo, you're getting rid of this card most of the time because you just want the send, and you want the pay like immediately, because you would just want to set up enough disruptions to kind of mess your opponent up. So that's going to round out the spells traps. It's just 11. So we'll talk about the Eld spell and trap, or the Elixir Scarlet Sanguine real quick. This card just is a trap card that lets you special summon one zombie from your deck or graveyard, but basically just summoning the Eldlord. You have no other targets in your deck, and if you have this card in your graveyard, and this goes with the same as all. So this card you can special summon an attack or defense, which is really versatile as well. This card only defense. This card I believe is attack or defense. So it's really good, really versatile. You can tack on damage with it in the battle phase too. So you attack with one Eldlord. Your opponent's at like 5,000 life points, and then you can just get another Eldlord from your deck or your graveyard. And oftentimes that's going to give you an opportunity to surprise people with killing them, which is really, really, really good. And then the secondary effect is, and this goes for all the Elixir cards. So this one, Black Destiny and White Awakening they both share this effect with this card. But if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and set directly from your deck one golden land, spell, or trap. I think there's only traps in this deck. There are only traps in this deck because this is not a golden land card. It is not a golden land card, and it is not an Elixir card, so it is completely unsearchable. You just gotta draw it. But you know, hence why they were able to like semi-limit it and actually have it make a dent in the strategy. Okay, now that I talked about the Elixir card, I want to just go ahead and go to the Golden Land cards. So actually, first Golden Land card, Golden Land Forever. This is not like the other two Golden Land cards. This is essentially your theme-specific Solemn Judgment, but you are using it. And what I mean by Solemn Judgment is just it can negate a spell or trap, and it can also negate a monster effect. So in some situations, it's a little bit better than Judgment, and Judgment obviously can negate summons. This card cannot do that. So basically, just whenever an effect is activated, you can tribute a zombie and negate and destroy it, which is quite strong. Definitely want to include just one of this card in your deck because you can only activate one per turn, and then the cost of tributing a monster to be able to do that is oftentimes you're not going to have you wouldn't even have two, even if you could. So you just run the one. Essentially, I already did mention that it was like highly tutorable. Like there's all of the Elixir cards can set it directly from your deck, and you're running 5 of those. And then those 5 cards are searched by these 5 cards. The Hakero of the Golden, and they're not searched, they're directly set from your deck, but Hakero of the Golden Land, very quickly I'll go over this. Basically, it's a zombie, it's a trap monster, continuous trap card that you can special summon to your side of the field. That's 1800 attack, 1500 defense, level 5 light zombie monster. And if you special summon this card that way, if you special summon this card using its effect, and you control Eldlich, the Golden Lord. Sorry, I abbreviate that quite often. You can banish a card from either player's graveyard, which is really good. And this is not going to like target a monster in the graveyard and banish it. So if your opponent's got an effect, they're going to have to chain it to this card. They aren't going to be able to wait, and they aren't going to be able to wait to see what you target. Basically, when this card resolves, it just happens. There's no like extra step where they're able to like respond when you're banishing the card, but they can respond to the activation of the card itself. And then the second effect of this card, and it's important to mention that this is the same thing with the Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine, Black Awakening, and White Destiny. You can only activate one of each effect per turn. So if you're activating the special summon effects, in the case of the Elixir cards, you cannot search that turn, or you cannot set directly from your deck that turn. And then if you're special summoning a zombie, level 5 zombie, you cannot do the secondary effect where during the end phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it and set an Elixir directly from your deck. The beauty of these cards, though, is that you can activate them, use them on your turn, you can use them on your opponent's turn, special summon them, and then on your turn, you can, link it away, Xyz summon with it, tribute it for Golden Land Forever, and then use its secondary effect to set the card directly from the deck in the end phase. The next card in the list is going to be Conquistador of the Golden Land. This is like the best trap in the deck, and one of the best traps in the game, in my opinion. You can special summon this card just like the other one, 500 attack, 1800 defense, but if you control Eldlich the Golden Lord, you get a way better effect. You get a non-targeting destruction. So when this card is, when the card resolves, basically, it summons and it destroys a card instantaneously. So if you see something like, I'm trying to think, what's it called? Oh, Blue Eyes Chaos Max, which I think is kind of popular in the lower ladder. This card doesn't care about. I don't actually. Wait, Chaos Max might not be able to be destroyed. I'm not sure. I should have thought before I spoke there. What? Why is there so many? Well, yeah, you can't. Doesn't out Chaos Max. There's Chaos Max outs in this deck. That's not one of them. Basically, you're just gonna prevent them from summoning Chaos Max, or you skill drain it, and then it's just dead. but we'll get it. We'll get into all these cards as we progress. But this card shares the same effect with Hakero. So when it's in the graveyard during the end phase, you can set one of these cards directly from your deck, which is why you run 3 different names as well. If you could, if I could run 5 Sanguine, I probably would. This card's like the best one, but this is like your weaker Sanguine, and this is like the weakest possible version of Sanguine. Essentially, because your Eldlords are going to come out of the deck so fast that this card is oftentimes not going to even be able to be activated, because it only works on Eldlich cards you have in your hand and in your deck, and like you're going to take them out of your deck pretty fast with these 2. And then basically, like I said, these 2 are tutored by these 2, or yeah, these 2. Anyway, that's it for the theme-specific trap cards. So I just want to quickly run through my one-off trap cards in here. Vanity's Emptiness, it's limited. I'd run 3 if I could. This is like the best card in your entire deck, obviously aside from like Eldlord, which is basically like the reason you can run a trap strategy like this. But neither player can special summon monsters. If this card is sent from the field, if a card is sent from the deck or field to the graveyard, destroy this card. The beauty about Vanity's Emptiness is that you can always, or almost always, use your Eldlord to, when it's in the graveyard, to send this card on the field. Eldlord's effect is actually to add the card back to your hand, and then you can special summon it. So you send the Vanity's Emptiness for cost, and you're able to special summon the Golden Lord. It'll gain that attack as well. So it's quite strong. Vanity's Emptiness is oftentimes hard for players to turn off, but in this deck specifically, it has like 0 problems doing that. Imperial Order, because it's insanely broken. Negate all spell effects on the field, and it's going to stay alive until you can't pay. But the beauty, again, of this deck is that Eldlord can get rid of it. So it's specifically even more unfair in my deck. So yeah. And then for the 2-ofs, I played 2 Torrential Tribute. 2 Torrential Tribute's insanely good in this deck as well. It's better because of some of the floodgates that we play, and it is also really, really good because your Eld cards, when you're I actually forgot to mention this, but when you special summon the Eldlord with the effect where you're special summoning it from the graveyard and it's gaining 1000 attack, it actually can't be destroyed by card effects until it loses that attack at the end of that next turn. So you can oftentimes Torrential Tribute their full board, and your 3500 Eldlich the Golden Lord is just not going to be destroyed by it, which is why this card is extremely good. I would say if you're looking for, or I won't even mention this, but as a rare, Torrential Tribute is amazing, is all I will say. Solemn Strike, there's probably an argument to play 3 Solemn Strike, just because of how powerful this card is, but the downside to Solemn Strike is that it's not always live. You're not paying a super high amount of life points in this deck. The only card that I've mentioned so far, besides Strike, that's paying life points is Eldland, but I'm about to mention some 3-up traps that you're going to be paying life points with. I think you guys probably see it. Solemn Judgment. This is the best card in the deck. The best card, one of the best cards in the game. It was banned for a long time in the TCG, but I think it's free everywhere now. Setting 5 cards and having Solemn Judgment is the difference between winning and losing the game. So you can tutor Judgment often. You can tutor a Golden Land forever, but you really want Solemn Judgment or Golden Land Forever, one of these two, if you're going to be setting a lot of back row, because you need to be able to negate cards like, I'll literally just show them right here, Harpy's Feather Duster, and Lightning Storm. These are the 2 scariest cards in the format for you. If you're not playing a Go First deck, you are 100% playing these cards. So yeah, you need to be able to negate them with either this or this. Paying half your life points is not a problem. I know that seems really scary for a lot of new players because 4,000 life points is a lot of life points, but in reality it's not that much life points, and life points really don't matter until you hit 0. And with this deck specifically, you can do a lot of walling up. 2800 is going to be super tough for a lot of decks to get around, especially once I mention a lot of the floodgates that we're going to get into. So I guess to explain what a floodgate is, if you don't know, basically a continuous trap or continuous spell or even a monster effect. But something that's not activating every turn, but it's like a persistent effect. So the first one we'll get into is Rivalry of the Warlords. Basically, you can only control one type of monster, and the type is the zombie thing right here. Not like XC Synchro or Link or whatever. So just to explain it for people who maybe don't know, because I know that a lot of new players are playing in Master Duel who maybe haven't had a ton of YuGiOh experience. Rivalry is quite good because, you know, if they control like a monster with, or if they control a board with like a warrior and a fairy, they've got to send one of those two to the graveyard. It's not destroying it, it is sending it. So if the card can't be destroyed, it still can have to go with Rivalry. Basically, your opponent's choosing to get rid of it, or they're forced to choose. And then the inverse to that card is there can only be one. This card is really, really, really good. I'm running 3 of it now in this variant, just because of how powerful it can be against the mirror match as well. So when your opponent, you basically, when you have this card up, you are also unable to use Conquistador or Hakero. But if you're able to activate this card in your opponent's turn, when they're also playing the same deck, they can't special summon the Hakero or the Conquistador. Hakero is actually way better in the mirror match. Something I should have mentioned, that this card banishing this card is a really, really good interaction. So if you wanted to tailor your deck more towards the mirror, which I know some people are saying that they are feeling that they need to, consider a 3rd copy of that. But there can only be one, will prevent them from activating these cards, and it's really good against a lot of strategies. So basically what I mean by the inverse is that each player can only control one monster of each type. So where before you could only control zombies and you could have as many zombies as you want, this card says, no, you can only have one zombie, and you can have a zombie, a warrior, a fairy, a machine, oh, this is a fish. Interesting. I thought this was a machine. But you can't have 2. Like, if you have one golden... specifically, the example I was mentioning there, if you control Eldlord, you're not able to activate these cards and special summon the zombie. So this card does lock you out a bit, but what I mentioned before about floodgates being very outable, or that this card can get rid of problem cards, like Vanity's Emptiness and Imperial Order are also considered floodgates. You can get rid of both of these cards and this card as well, no problem. And then for the last floodgate, which I think perhaps is the most powerful, and the reason that I think that this deck is so unbeatable for anything that is not Eldlich, is Skill Drain. So Skill Drain just says you pay 1,000 life points. Again, more life points paying. I just said that I wasn't paying a super ton of life points, but again, I'm only running 2 Solemn Strike because this is this could be dead sometimes. Like, I can't always pay 1,500 life points, but no matter what happens, even if I have 1 life point, I'm allowed to pay half of them. And I think I would just stay at 1 because that's just how you get. Or maybe it would put me to half a life point. I really honestly don't know. But there's never a situation where Judgment is not activatable. Whereas Strike, if you're under 1,500, it's not going to work. Skill Drain also under 1,000 is not going to work. The 1,000 life points is really, really, really not relevant. If I'm willing to pay 4,000 to negate 1 effect, paying 1,000 to negate all effects of monsters on the field is pretty good. You have no monster effects on your board that you're really scared about. So you have Eldlich. It doesn't even have an on-field effect at all. Conquistador is not a monster effect, basically, to pop, and same with Hakera. So if you have a Golden Lord and you use one of these cards to special summon it, you can still get their effects. No problem. Just don't go into your extra deck when you're doing that. And then I guess that's kind of a nice little smooth transition to the extra deck. I believe I talked about every single card in the deck. So I have significantly swagged this extra deck out and paid a lot of resources for it. I bought a lot of packs and got a lot of not a lot of ultra rares. So the most annoying and most expensive card in the deck, the Tiras, Keeper of Genesis. You run this card specifically because it's insane in the mirror match. So while this card has Xyz material, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. Well, that's the only way Eldlich has to deal with cards like this. Eldlich needs to destroy. It can destroy with Conquistador. It can destroy with Eldlich, the Golden Lord. But neither, and it destroys with Torrential Tribute. A lot of people are playing a lot of copies of that. This card doesn't care. This card says, yeah, no, not going to do that. For 2 turns, you just can't destroy me. You can try to beat over me by battle, you know, like sending a card from your graveyard, getting that 3,500 Elblord, but other than that, you're not going to be able to get over me. It's really good in the mirror match. You make it with 2 of these. Constellar Pleiades, also pretty good in the mirror match, especially if their Eldlord is 3,500 and can't be destroyed. You can always Pleiades them. Pleiades is really good as well because you can get a Pleiades bounce on your turn, detaching a material, bouncing a card that they have, and then on their turn you can also do it. So yeah, Constellar Pleiades, really sick. And then for the last rank 5 that I run is Shark Fortress. I just have a soft spot for this card in my heart. You can detach one XYZ. So there's this little effect: your opponent cannot target monsters for attacks except for this one. It doesn't really ever come up because why would it? But you can detach one XYZ material and target a monster on the field. It can attack twice. If you do that to a 3,500 Eldlich, you're oftentimes going to find game even through something like an Upstart Goblin, where you're giving. I mean, I guess I'm not technically playing Upstart Goblin, but if you were to upstart and give them 1,000 life points, you could do. I believe it's like 9,400. That combo I just mentioned there. So you can get really crazy random bursts out of nowhere. No one expects the stun deck to OTK them until it does. And then when you're doing that, you definitely want to overlay the Thunder Charger on for maximum damage. You want to do 9,600 damage, not 9,400 damage. And then I guess there's some situations where maybe this doesn't have any material or this doesn't have any material. 200. I mean, it's 100 more damage or yeah, 100 more damage or 200 more damage, or no, actually no extra damage. Never mind. But this card also does piercing, so. Just pretty cool. Sort of. Oh, never mind. I was like trying to read. I thought this was Gaia, but yeah. Yeah. Gaia can do piercing. So in some situations where maybe they set an effect feeler or something because they're just so desperate, you can get random games. I like having Gaia Gaia Thunder Charger. I've had that card in my. It's also a super rare, so it's just one of those cards I want to throw in there. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. This card is relatively new, not really, but you can attach one XYZ and just burn for 2,000. So sometimes you just game people with that. 2,000 is a lot of life points. Sky Palace Gangari Die. You can attach one XYZ material, target one card your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do, you burn them for 1,000. I've had some funny games on the channel where I win games with Gangari Die, but oftentimes you're playing it either for the fact you don't really care about popping one card. It's not typically worth overlaying both of your Golden Lords to pop one card. You're doing it for the 1,000 damage. I would recommend against going into your extra deck, especially with the rank 10s, unless you are planning to win the game that turn or the next turn. So that's, I mean, the burn, and you run 2 of this because you just want to have it in your extra deck. If you might banish it with this or this. Number 81, Super Dreadnought Dora. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora is the card's name, actually. Holy crap. You can detach one XYZ material from this card, then target one face-up monster on the field that is unaffected by card effects except its own until the end of this turn. Dora targets Dora oftentimes, and it is it's pretty good. Unaffected by card effects, 4,000 defense. How do you kill it? All right. The next card we have in here is this this Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. So this is a rank 11, but you can just kind of overlay it the same way you overlay this onto a rank 10. This card says once per turn you can detach one material from this card. It gains 2,000 attack and defense for the rest of this turn. You only declare an attack with this card. During the battle phase, this card can make attacks on numbers of the monsters equal to material it has +1. So yeah, it's 4,000 attack. That's completely insane. So if they leave an open board, you can quite literally, and you can make double Eld. You can quite literally go Super Dreadnought Cannon, detach 1, burn them for 2,000, overlay onto this card, detach 1, it's 6,000 attack. That's game. That's 8,000 damage. So yeah, that's pretty good. I would say. Link Spider and Imduck both basically serve the same purpose. Link Spider, I guess technically I should run 2 Imduck and 1 Link Spider. But you are only running these cards so that you can... actually, I think Link Spider's like a little better. So you're only running these cards for the sole fact that sometimes you need to link away these just to make sure that in the end phase you can get their spell trap effects. And then in the case of Conquistador, you can link it away and get 500 more damage. Sometimes you need it for game, which is why I put the second Link Spider back in after I took the... I had 2 Imducks, but Imduck's effect is not really that good. Imduck basically just is an effect that says if it battles a card that it points to, you see it's kind of like a little link arrow. I don't know, like this is not really that good because it can only go in 2 spots. So if your opponent's playing around Imduck, they'll never have a card get destroyed by Imduck that it'd be like good to destroy with Imduck. So the higher you go, the worse Imduck gets, unfortunately. But you just kind of have them in there for the rare situations where you are able to use that effect and get some value there. But like I said, you're really just having these cards in the deck so that you can link into these and then get their end phase effects. And for the last card in the entire deck profile is Zombie Sucker. You don't go into this very often either. I hardly ever would go into this. It's a similar situation. Linking away an Eldlich in one of these is not horrible because you're A, going to get the end phase search, and B, you can use your Elblitch to recur itself, and then when you do... So basically, when this card is special summoned, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it, and it becomes a zombie. So there's actually some cute stuff you can do with, like... Rivalry. If you have Rivalry of the Warlords face up, you can Vampire Sucker one of their cards back to the board, and now they can only control zombies, and most decks are not zombie decks. And then the second effect of this card is if a zombie monster is special summoned from either graveyard, you can draw 1 card. You can draw a card with Eldlich, and you can draw a card with this card's effect if you special summon a card to their field, but don't do that probably most of the time. Like, have an idea of what the plan is when you activate Vampire Sucker. Don't just click yes to click yes. But I do just want to reemphasize that extra is not really that important. Just fill it up because you do need cards in there for these cards. But and you probably do need the Link Spiders or the Imducks. So if you don't want to make the super rare Link Spiders, make 3 Imducks. It's fine. It's basically serving the same purpose 80% of the time you go into it. And you're only going into it maybe 10% of your games. You should really be trying to win games just with beating people with Eldlord and all your spell traps. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I may make more content going into specifics on like how to play this game. The theory is kind of hard to explain on this deck because it's not a combo deck, it's a control deck. So it really just comes down to your understanding of what kind of cards you need to be interrupting. So like knowing the right time to activate Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike turns to Tribute, Conquistador, knowing the right time to Vanity's Emptiness, knowing the right time to Skill Drain, knowing the right time to There Can Only Be One, Golden Eld. Like all these cards are just going to come with more and more time playing the game. Like you're just going to have to activate enough Solemn Judgments to know, like, when I Solemn Judgment this card, I win the game more times than I lose the game. Or like when I Vanity's Emptiness here, it's terrible. But when I Vanity's you just need to play the game. That's really the best advice I can give to you. The more and more you play, the better you get. If you guys want to know kind of some background on how much I've played, I made a video about kind of my background in paper YuGiOh. Anyway, guys, my name is Neosynthesis. I am a Season 1 Platinum 1 player. I hit Platinum on the very first day. Pretty much just playing this deck, a little kind of tweaked list. I made this deck a little bit better for the mirror match by taking the anti-spell fragrance out and switching it for the third. There can only be one. If you have 3 strikes, you can do 3 strikes too. Strike is also insane in the mirror match. I don't want to tailor this deck too hard for the mirror match because my personal feelings are that no matter what you do, the better player will win in the mirror match 90% of the time, just because it's about, like I said, it's about knowing when to Solemn Judgment, it's about knowing when to Solemn Strike, Torrential Tribute, all these cards. Knowing how to not burn yourself out and just overextend for no reason into potentially pitfalls, which you're going to get more and more adept at identifying pitfalls just kind of as you play more and more. That's the main takeaway that I want people to have, is that the more time you put into this deck, it's really not teaching you a deck per se. So like a lot of the times, like Virtual Worlds, you need to learn like combos and like what every card does and whatnot. This is really teaching you fundamental YuGiOh stuff, like when to interrupt, how to interrupt, how to play a game of conservation of resources, how to kind of whittle the game state down to a simplified state, in which the Eldlich deck is really, really strong. Yeah, I guess that's the last thing I really have to say. I appreciate everybody watching. Let me know if you guys have questions about cards in the deck, questions about replacements. I think I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I may do a more budget-friendly list where I kind of take out some of the ultra rares, or maybe just go through and explain what exactly ultra rares you need. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.